I like to do my research. I like to take time, and
I completely forgot about fossil watches.
First opportunity in the door as an artist, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna dress up. I had this Panerai on, and I remember when he walked in through the door, he had the real Panerai on, the exact same model I had, and bro, mine, like this lever was the opposite direction.
Welcome to another episode of 0 to 60. Today I have my very good friend, Jon the Producer, multi-platinum, Grammy award-winning producer, who's brought his collection a little bit of everything. I mean, literally a little bit of everything here. I'm excited to have this conversation with you because since I know you, you would think that because we're both in the music industry, we'll talk about music, but we generally only talk about watches.
That's 90% of our chats.
90% of our chats are about music, and maybe 2% is about watches, and maybe 2% are about music. You have quite a range of watches here. But before we go super deep into the watches, what's on your wrist?
Dude, so this is a Cartier Must-Stay. My first vintage piece actually came just in time for this episode, so I'm really happy to have it. And I don't know, man, I've been looking for a while to get a vintage piece, and something about this lemon dial, I saw it and I bought it within like an hour. Like, I called the guy, everything cleared, and I don't know, for me, I think it just got my itch like going about vintage watches. So I'm pretty excited about it. I love the lizard strap, the yellow of it. It's just so different. I mean, you can see these are pretty like, traditional tones, and to have this is kind of like, the clown watch, but I love it.
Are you usually into color straps? Are you into loud watches?
You can tell kind of from here that I'm more into watches that if you know what it is, you can kind of appreciate it more, and if not, it kind of goes under the radar. But after a while, there's only so much you can do with like, gold or black and white, and now I'm starting to realize like a strap can totally change a watch. Like I have like 5 straps for this Panerai, and you change it, it's like having 5 different watches, and when you start going into bespoke and all that stuff, it really starts realizing how much bigger the watch world is than we think on Chrono 24.
Listen, this is a bad addiction.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that will have you sleeping in the couch because your girlfriend is like, stop spending money on it, But it's also a beautiful hobby, right? Because at the end of the day, I do feel like these are incredible timepieces, or pieces of art, but that you actually get to wear with you and actually enjoy every day. And they're one of the wonders. Honestly, it's a scientific wonder to be able to tell time in that way. And do you feel? Because I just heard you say when you were talking about buying this watch, like you saw it and the impulse was automatic. Is that how usually you buy it?
No,
think about it.
The first time I've ever done that.
Okay.
But I've been looking for so long for this vintage watch, and I knew I wanted to get a Cartier because I appreciate what they're doing now, but there's something about like seeing a worn-in one. It kind of has more character. But every other piece I've ever gotten, I've always slept on. I've just been like super researchy about. But this one, I don't know. I saw it, and I've never seen a watch like this. I've never seen a lemon dial like this. If it is, it's usually really worn out and crackled. And this one was just so beautiful. I don't know.
Trigger.
Yeah. I had to pull the trigger.
So I have a perpetual calendar skeleton AP.
Beautiful.
I would say this is one of my dream watches. Obviously, Kanye and Pharrell wore it back in the early 2000s. And the funny thing is that I kind of treat it like a beater. I mean, you can tell it's so scratched.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, did you get that like polish at first, and now you have like the age of it, or you wanted to wear its battle marks?
It was in great condition, to be honest. It wasn't, because it's a vintage watch and it was a discontinued watch, I made sure that it wasn't polished, like pre-polished by anyone. So I had like 1 or 2 scratches here and there, but I beat this thing up.
Yeah,
okay.
It looks good though.
This thing got scratches. I've hit it against the door, like, at first I was like, oh no, why? But then I started to realize as I've gone deeper into watch collecting that it's such a beautiful character trait of the watch when it grabs a scratch while you were doing something, right? Because I buy watches usually to establish an important moment of my life, like to celebrate an important moment of my career or whatever it is. So this to me was like one of those moments, and now it's all scratched up.
No, but I think it looks even more beautiful that way, because it shows that it belongs to your journey. That's, for me, at the end of the day, these pieces, they're like timestamps of your life. So if you polish that, you're erasing all those moments.
So when you go buy a watch, what's that process like, right? Is it like you knew that you were looking for that watch because you've done all the research, or you just like happen to walk into the store and are looking around and then like something catch your eye and then you gotta go, like what's that process like?
It's never a compulsory buy. I learned that with this Daytona, which I'll tell you the story about that in a little bit, but I like to do my research, like to find out what the prices are like, I like to find out what the history's like, you know, hype, and then also knowing your dealer. But for me, it's more about, you know, what the watch represents to me. So for me, sometimes, you know, some pieces have a memory, and I'm just like, one day I'm gonna get that piece, you know, and then you get that piece one day, and you've been dreaming about it for 8 years, you know. So for me, that's what a lot of these pieces kind of were like. I know the Hodinkee G-Shock one is a little bit more, you know, it came out and then a week later I ordered it. But yeah, they're mostly, I like to do my research, I like to take time, and you know, I bought a lot of music equipment over the years that a year after they lost their charm, and watches can get pretty expensive, so I want to make sure it doesn't have the same feature.
And so what got you into watches? Is it a reason, admiration, or is this something that you were, as a kid, always loved timepieces?
Dude, you know, it's a bit of both, but the bug was, I remember I was like maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I was at Burger King, and you know when they give those little toys and all that stuff, and for some reason that run they had, I guess the new Jurassic Park that was out, they were selling a watch with it, like the, you know, $5 cheap, you know, electric watch, and I remember when I got that, it was, something scratched my itch that was like, what is this? I want to wear this forever. And I wore it even when the battery was dead and it was beat up, and I don't know where it is now, but that was kind of like the moment where I realized like, I need something on my wrist. You know, even when I got out of, you know, I couldn't afford a watch at 10, 11 years old, so whatever I could find on a little leather bracelet, I'd wear that for a year, you know? And then, you know, when I was a teenager, I started working like, you know, at the mall with your little job that you get $7 an hour for, and when I saved enough money, I got a fossil watch, which I thought was like high horology at the time, which, you know, as we know, is not.
I completely forgot about fossil watches. Dude.
It was a whole thing.
It was a thing.
Yeah,
like,
man.
If you had a fossil watch, you were cool.
Yeah.
You were cool. You were definitely the talk of the town.
Yeah. So I got a fossil watch, and I remember just wearing that in like my school uniform and stuff, and just being like, this is like mine. This makes me feel like more legit and more like well dressed. And I even felt like when I wasn't wearing watch that day, I would feel like I was naked. You'd have like everything on. You're like, something feels off, like my balance is wrong. And so yeah, ever since those days, watches have always been kind of something that have been a part of me. But it wasn't until kind of I started going into music where, you know, I started seeing the real watches that everyone wears, these heavy hitters, and I'm like, oh wait, this gets a lot deeper than just, you know, material on your wrist. There's an art form to this. There's craftsmanship. There's, you know, just an expression of yourself.
Yeah. So, what was that first watch for you? Like, was there a watch that you said, okay, I'm now doing music, I love watches, but here's the dream? Like, what was that first watch that said, the moment I could, because when you're in our business, there's always that one thing you want when that check comes.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, when I get my first check, I'm gonna buy myself something. For me, that was a two-tone GMT Master 2 Rolex.
That's right.
When you can walk in at, you know, Mayors and get it with, I got it in layaway, but it was like that, like I wanted a Rolex. Like there was, you know, at the time, and I think still now, Rolex is still Rolex,
yeah,
right?
Rolex
Still the
king,
crown is the king. But what was that watch that you were like, as soon as I get my first check, I'm gonna buy that?
Dude, you know what? It was the Panerai. It was my first watch. And you know, it's crazy that we talk about this in that context, because the whole story behind this watch, when I was first starting out in music, I had no money. You know, my roommate, Ricky Montaner at the time, was like paying for my lunch and dinners. We were struggling. And I remember that my dad gave me a fake watch because he was on a trip to Jamaica. I was like, yo, I met these guys at the gas station, and they had this suitcase of fake watches, and he told me, this is the best one, you should wear it when you go to work. And so I was wearing this fake Panerai for like a year, not getting any business, and my first big session was with Diego Boneta, who, you know, now is like this huge star with, you know, Luis Miguel show. And it was just my first opportunity in the door as an artist, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna dress up in like the most expensive H&M shirt I have, and I had this Panerai on, and I remember when he walked in through the door, he had the real Panerai, the exact same model I had, and bro, mine, like this lever was the opposite direction. It was so bad.
It was not a Chinatown.
Bro, oh man, it was like, Dad, who'd you get scammed by? This is not. And I took it off nonchalantly, never wore it again. But I said when I get my first big check, I was gonna go to Panerai and buy it. And I think my first check that came in was for Anitta's Medicina. And I went in, I didn't have enough money for rent the next month, but I spent all that money on getting this watch. And you know, I love it. It has nothing to do with, you know, the craftsmanship. The watch is beautiful. It looks awesome, but it has everything to do with that emotional, like, fuck you, I want to make it enough to be able to feel like I can have this. And
you know, it's crazy because part of the channel has been really interesting because we've talked about, you know, my collection and things, but we've also talked about, you know, Seikos and tags and just a bunch of different watches that, you know, people wouldn't think I own just because I own like big timepieces. But it's like, at first, that first purchase or that first watch is a little bit to feed their ego. It's a little bit to like, yo, I made it.
You want to achieve it, yeah.
I remember having a Rolex. It was a presidential Rolex, and fake, 100% fake. And
with the oversized bezel and stuff.
Man, listen, no, this was the even worst part I found, right? So I walked into the studio, I was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm out here studying, you know. And then all of a sudden, I'm like in the session, and I think, it was with Mario, the artist Mario.
Oh man.
And I go to like show him the watch, and the crown just went,
no.
And it fell to the bottom. And I was like, all right, I gotta get going. You know what I mean? But I was like, when the crown falls, that's how I was like, how am I even gonna open this? I felt so ashamed.
Oh man.
And it's like one of those things where it's like, you knew that everybody knew that your shit was fake, but you were still trying to like make it pass through and not make yourself feel bad. And it was that moment too that I said, oh no, my first watch has to be a Rolex. I gotta fix this. I gotta fix this out. So you go into this Panerai. Now let me ask you something about divers, right? Are you a big, like this is 44?
Yeah, 44 millimeters. This is a big watch.
It's a big watch.
Yeah.
You know, are you into big watches? Is this your into divers, or it was just really more just this particular model?
I think for me at the time, I was into bigger watches, but it wasn't particularly about diving or anything like that. It was just more the weight of it, you know, because you know how some watches feel a little bit light and that's fun. Some titanium watches feel really, really, you know, almost invisible. And something about wearing that just, it's like when you put a nice coat on, you know, it feels more, you know, well made and a little bit extra. And I don't know, that for me, when I wore it every single day, I felt a little bit more, I don't know, like I had more that I could reach for and more that I could grab for, and inspiring to me, really.
So we got the Panerai.
Yeah.
What came next?
Bro, right after that, that's the thing. You know, when you start, it's downhill. Once you buy your first watch, you're gonna get 20 within a decade, and you start telling yourself, I need a watch that's this color. I need a watch that fits this theme. But for me, it was the Daytona once the wheel started going, because when, you know, all these watches have kind of, you know, milestone moments in my career. This was when I first started making enough money in music where I wasn't thinking, okay, what's gonna be after music? Because this is gonna make my, you know, my stomach full. So when I got my first big like publishing check, it was like, I think 2019, late 2018, and I had been trying to find this watch for years, like just to see it in person, not even to buy it. And I mean, these are impossible to find back in the day. No one was just handing them out. You know, even the boutiques, like they had one for exhibition, but I didn't even know you could make an appointment. I would just get rejected at the door. And I was just trying to find it in person. I was in downtown after like months of looking, and it just happened to be in the window. And I went in, I'm like, is it for sale? And the guy's like, yeah. And I go, can I buy it? And he goes, yeah. Told me the price, wired in the money right there. And he thought I was like a scammer because I asked no questions. And he's like, give me 24 hours for it to clear, and I'll call you back tomorrow to come pick it up. Went to pick it up. Rest is history. That watch is that watch is going in the grave with me. That watch is the forever piece.
You know, the Daytona Panda is by far, I would say, you know, other than the Paul Newmans, is probably like the Daytona that everybody wants, and obviously impossible to get at retail nowadays. You know, like
forget about it.
And so you bought this aftermarket.
Yeah, I bought it at a car jewelers in downtown, and actually I had called like 7 different places. I was driving to Boca Raton. No one wanted to show me the watch because, you know, jewelers aren't dumb. They get scamming people all the time that go in that can I see a, you know, a rose gold AP scale, and they're like, no, like you don't don't just ask for that. You got to know what you're doing. Yeah. So to finally like, you know, get to find a jeweler that just had it in the window, for me it felt like serendipitous. And I'm a huge fan of John Mayer, like as a musician, as a creative. He was kind of like my first kind of, you know, addiction to creating music. I would just copy all his productions and all his arrangements, and I got into his like watch, you know, style, and obviously this is like kind of a core in his, you know, collection, and I was like, oh, one day I want to get that. And when that, you know, first milestone happened where I thought I could actually achieve that, I don't know, it just scratched a niche I never knew I had.
It's crazy because, you know, I think John Mayer is a good example of you never know the kind of impact you will have on someone, but just speaking about something you love, right? So it's crazy because I saw that talking watches as well, and I was like, oh my God, like this guy really. And I remember the Kanye video with him where he where he's like, how much was that?
People think that I'm just like, I wear myself a Casio watch and I drive a Ford Focus or something like that. This is a platinum IWC Big Pilot. You know how much that thing is? $40,000. How much was that one, Jesus?
15.
And this was 40?
That means he's way more stuntastic.
Oh yeah. Go back and listen to Daughters, bitches.
Yeah, this is 50, bro. Like, I respect him for that. As a matter of fact, last video I posted, John liked it.
No way.
Like, and I was like, yes, I made it. Milestone. Nah, but shout out to John, and shout out to, I mean, his amazing collection, how he speaks about watches, how he looked at collecting when, you know, at the times where he did that. I mean, you still walk into a store and get some watches, maybe not the super rare, but it wasn't what happened after COVID, right? It wasn't like this explosion of new money and everybody putting their money into watches. I mean, like most of these watches, people wouldn't be able to sell. They would give you, I mean, they would give you financial plans to buy them.
You can get anything you want back in the day.
I think it's created a whole new market for watches, a whole new explosion. Like I really think watches are the new culture conversation. Like how sneakers were maybe, you know, 4 years ago, sneaker culture kind of dead. You know, people are not in the hunt anymore for the rare Jordans. It's like, you know, it's kind of hit this downpipe. But watches, it's now, it's the talk of the town. It's what you have, it's what you bring. And honestly, for the watch industry, I'm really happy because it is, again, pieces of art, and that's a beautiful thing. Now, you get the Panda, which is, you know, obviously a Grail watch of all Grail watches for, one of the Grail watches from Rolex. Do you decide after that, like, I want to go try to start building a relationship with the ADs? So like, how's that journey been with you, going from buying an aftermarket to like, okay, you know, we all want the ADs to give us everything, but it's a whole lot of work, bro.
I'm gonna tell you something. If there's an AD watching, we are the customers. I don't get why we have to beg. It should not be like this in any other industry. It's not like that. And I you know, I went, you know, dealer for this one. I went gray for this one. And like you said, I wanted to start creating that relationship. So I knew I wanted the president, and this was kind of, this I got as a celebration for my first, my first number one, when I had Timepieces and all that stuff, and things kind of like blew up, and it was super, super magical, and things were going great, and I was like, okay, I want to go to the boutique and get the experience, and I paid full retail for this. I know I could have gotten less for it. I was shopping it around, but I was like, let me go build that relationship, and you know, I don't regret it.
So this was from an AD?
Oh yeah, design district, bro, right down the street. Wow. Yeah, it was great, and they offered me a Hulk right after it, and I was like, I just bought a Panda and a president. Let me not do this yet. Let me just take it slow.
I find it really interesting because, you know, they have this inventory at the end of the day, right? Like any other business, they receive inventory from the manufacturer of things they order based on their market. So they know, like, I'm in Miami, so you know, flashy gold color, like that's all gonna sell really well. Right. In Miami, they get this inventory, they put it in their safe. Some people do show stuff out at the storefronts. Some people hold some stuff back. But the reality is they gotta move that inventory because, you know, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure this is very much similar to the fashion business, part of being a Rolex dealer or a Patek dealer or anything is you have to be able to consistently buy. Like, you can't be a retailer of Rolex, because they're all privately owned, right? Yeah. And so you can't be a retailer of Rolex and not sell enough to get, you know, more pieces in next month or next quarter or whatever it is. So at some point they have to allocate those pieces in order for the new shipment to go out and sell, because everybody makes money if the sale happens. But it's really interesting because before, like I said, you could just walk in, hey, I want that one. They were happy to give it to you so they can put another one out.
Yeah.
Because they have 3 more of these hanging around in the back, you know, or maybe 2, or sometimes just 1, but
it's there, yeah.
Especially like of the steel models, they have a few.
Yeah.
Right? But now it's like they have this list. So you walk in, you say, you know, I want this Rolex, and they'll write it in their piece of paper, and then they'll tell you, well, you know, we're gonna check back, see if I'm allocated, and the truth is, if their normal regular client list, because every seller has, you know, maybe 10, 20, 30 people that they're usually, if those people don't buy it, all of a sudden they call you, it's like, bro, you're lucky. I just got it in. It's for you. No, they had it in the back.
Yeah.
There's no one else in there. No one
They
else.
went down the list, and you were number 6.
Yeah, and you were number 6. Like everybody else didn't want to buy it, and they're like, you have been the chosen one to get the lucky watch. So it's such an interesting relationship, and I find that for me, for example, I generally go in trying to make real relationships. Like I generally try to figure out if the person or the seller is someone that I can be friends with, because I understand they gotta make money, just like the great market dealers. I understand they gotta make money, but like if you ain't got a real relationship, if like I walked into Rolex today, right? Because I did my little rounds.
Oh yeah.
Did my little rounds. You know, that's the problem.
Yeah. You just want to browse, but you know nothing's in there. You still want to browse.
I've learned. You see, I've learned that if I don't want to spend money, I need to stay my ass at home.
Yeah.
Because the moment I go, like today, I visit Tag, I visit IWC, Rolex, I visit Patek, and some had some watches, but it's that the difference between I walk into IWC, and, you know, and I bought something there before, but they're like, hey man, how are you? They offer you some water, you talk. You know, I walked into Tag, the manager came out, look, here's the new Formula Ones that just were in Watches and Wonders, so on and so on. I walk into Rolex, my man acted like he was Jesus.
Yeah.
And I was the devil.
Yeah.
Like, he literally was like, yeah, so what do you want to buy? I felt like, one arm in it, but that's how it is. And honestly, I don't know why it's like that, because it should, to your point, it's like, you're the customer, at least treat me well.
And these are pieces that cost a lot. People work their whole lives to get a Rolex. Like, I know there's a lot of pieces here, but each one of these is like a lifetime achievement. Like, this is not something to take lightly. Like, I know you see on Instagram these watch boxes of 40 Rolexes and Pateks, and it's like, but bro, for somebody, like, an Oyster Perpetual is the happiest day of their life, celebrating the birth of their child or their 40th anniversary. It's like, these are special moments, and it shouldn't feel that way. It should feel a lot more special.
I mean, look at Cartier. I think Cartier has a history where I feel like most moms pass down a Cartier to their daughters. Like, I know so many of the girls that work here have some sort of watch that got passed on, and that's the beauty of watches. Like, and to your point, these are not, you know, $600 watches. Like, you're buying a Rolex. You're paying a couple grand. But all right, you got into the AD. Shout out to all the ADs. We understand it's your job, but just be nice.
Yeah.
You don't need to be an asshole. Just be nice.
So I got this through the AD design.
So now you're 3 in. So now the bug has hit.
Now the bug has hit, and that's where it starts getting messy, and that's where you see, you know, a G-Shock Hodinkee John Mayer release, and you start telling yourself, well, I should just buy this because I like watches and I love John Mayer. And so this was a pandemic buy, and you know, when it came out, I thought there's no way you're gonna find a watch like this officially John Mayer. You know, you have the John Mayer green dial Daytona that, you know, is not officially his, but unofficially. But this was okay. The first time he had done a collab. Had I known he was gonna do the AP collab, I might have saved up for a few years and gone that route. But that, I don't know why. I got that watch and I wore that watch every day for a couple of months. It just felt so, like, you know, I went so far. I remember playing John Mayer songs in my bedroom on a guitar, and everyone was telling me, you're not gonna go with music, you gotta go to school. And to get to be in that moment, like in pandemic, where everything was shut down, but I was still making records for artists, and I was still working, and then to get to have that on my wrist, I don't know, this watch for me has a lot of that kind of like, you went far, kid, kind of vibes, you know?
I mean, you got the John Mayer look. Now that I say that,
oh, man.
Like, we could definitely put John Mayer's face right here, and it'll be like Jon the Producer, John Mayer. Maybe that's the alter ego, brother. You know,
it's my spirit animal.
That spirit animal. But talking about Jon Hodinkee, you know, shout out to Hodinkee and you know, Ben and those guys. They do amazing work. I love their riders. I'm like a huge fan of their site, and I was a huge fan of when they were just like a blog. And then with Jon, talk to me about your love for the John Mayer Daytona. They just re-released it at Watches and Wonders inverted, right, with the sub-dials. And then talk to me about the AP. What's your thought on those two?
Oh man, well honestly, I mean, the AP John Mayer collab I think is a home run. I think, you know, his branding is so well done. Like he curates everything about his brand really well. He's really artistic. He cares about detail, cares about all the little things that everyone would kind of throw to the side, especially nowadays in music. He still kind of fights for the truth in his recordings. So it makes sense that like his watches would kind of, you know, represent that. And I think the AP dial, I've never seen it in person, but if the videos look half as good, I'm like, that's the nicest watch I've ever seen in my life. But one of 300, right? And the Daytona, that's, you know, I love the green dial Daytona, but I like the white gold blue one that he has. I don't know why. Yeah. I like understated watches. I feel like it's, especially living in Miami where everything is so flashy, I kind of like being the counter, you know, like I could have gone with a different dial on this, but I went with the white dial because it just felt more forever. It felt like when I'm 90 years old, I can rock this and not feel like, Dad, why do you have a green dial Daytona? It's like, well, John Mayer told me.
The thing is, there was a guy named John Mayer who I look very much alike. He was my spirit animal.
So I had to get it.
So I had to get it. Green for money, son. Yeah. Green for money. Oh, man. You know, I put the watch on. I put the John Mayer one. So I had a 5711R like you have here. There was something about the balance wheel that was just bothering me. So I was like, I'm gonna get rid of it.
Yeah, I remember you told me that. Yeah.
And I'm gonna try to see what other things I buy. One of the things was like John Mayer Daytona. Why not? Right? Like obviously, duh. Well, I put it on and I felt like I was in an episode of Miami Vice, and I was like, no, this is not for me.
Hold it a second, Larry. This one's Artie's.
You know, this is too.
It's like, hard, bro.
And that yellow, especially that old yellow. Yeah. Just like bright yellow.
And especially on Daytona too, like with those extra chronograph, it's a lot of watch.
Yeah,
it's a lot of watch.
It's a lot of watch with the green dial. The AP, which I noticed you don't have any APs. Is that next?
Can I tell you something? I love AP so much, and you know, seeing your piece, you know, it's just a constant reminder that I don't want to fuck up and get the piece that in a year or two I'm like, oh, I should have got, because you know, Royal Oaks are Royal Oaks. You know, you have a lot of different variations, but you know the Royal Oak configuration. I don't think I'm going to be a kind of person that's going to have 5 of them. I'd love to. So I want to wait till I find the one that, you know, that's the home run. I did see a salmon dial one. And when I saw the salmon dial pricing, I was like, let me wait a little bit.
Like you can go back in the water.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just wait. But I definitely do want to get an AP, but you know, like I said, I like to really find the pieces that I know I'm going to keep forever. You know, I know people move through watches as investments and kind of, you know, build their inventory and, you know, swap in and out. I have too much emotional attachment to it, and that's the only reason why I can't move that way. You know, for me, you know, even though this is a Panerai that I'm sure you can swap up for a bunch of other watches that have more value now. For me, that, you know, story is going to stay with me forever, and I want that reminder. Remembering that first time I got this Daytona is special for me. So I want to make sure the AP has the same journey.
I love that. You know, I definitely feel like that about a lot of my watches. I've definitely lost a lot of money on passion project watches. You know, like you walk in the store, you're like, yeah, I love this, and then you're like, you leave. And then you try to, like, or you're not sure about it. It actually happened to me. I'm not going to mention the watch because I don't want the AD to come in. But it happened to me with a watch I bought at an AD, and I was really thrilled about it at the store. But then I went home and I was like, why did I buy this? And then when I tried to sell it, I lost like 40 grand. Bro.
No way.
It hurt. I cried.
Man.
I didn't cry, but I cried.
And did you try to sell it because you were over the watch, or you wanted to get into a different piece and you needed?
Honestly, is that. Here's the real story. The real story is I caught the bug of one of those like, okay, I'm bored, I've had a hard week, let's go look at watches. Bad mistake. I've learned my lesson. Do not do that.
Yeah, no.
So
it'll give you joy for a little bit.
No, I went into the store and I was looking specifically for a rose gold watch. So I put on this rose gold watch, and I'm like, I like it, but the dial is big. And I'm a 39 is like the perfect size for me. 39 smaller is where I sit. So my wrist looks the best, you know? And I put it on, beautiful watch, and my assistants were like, "You gotta get that, man. That shit is amazing." You know, and you start feeling the hype. You start feeling like Rocky.
Yeah.
I felt like Rocky. All the way until I got home and everybody left, and then you're by yourself, and it's just you and the watch, and then you're like, "No, damn, dog, I don't know." But then you start trying to like convince yourself, "But nah, but it's a great watch." Like, there's people that would love to have this watch. You should be happy you got to buy it. So I passed a week like that, only to find out a week later, I was like, I definitely do not like this watch.
Oh, man.
I definitely do not think it's for me. It doesn't fit my style. So I went to a friend of mine and said, hey man, like, you know, would you sell this for me? Dude, I took a loss so big.
Oh my gosh, that's rough.
The whole weekend I was just, I was like, I remember, I was looking, and you know, you look at the receipt, because this is what it's like. I looked at the receipt, then I looked at what I got, and
You can't do that.
on my calculator making the math, and I was like, no, this is hurtful. So I learned my lesson with that.
Yeah.
But yes, I think Royal Oaks to me are, I mean, one of my favorite models, but it is about finding that right one, because I've had multiple different ones. I've had jumbos, I have, you know, offshores, and like right now I'm looking for an Eves dial, which is the blue dial, Eves plain dial. I love perpetual calendars. I just love the dial on that. So I've been looking for one, but it's again, it's like that. You see the price and you get a little scared. You're trying to make sure it's not the wrong one, and then also, what's to your point, I've gotten to the place where it's like I want to buy watches that I'm not willing to sell.
Yeah.
Like I'm not willing to sell this.
Yeah, that's with you for life.
I say this is gonna be one of those.
Yeah.
And I find myself that I bought a lot of things that I'm like, oh, if I can get rid of this. It's like if I could get rid of it, I don't want to buy it anymore because it doesn't go.
Yeah, it's a different transitional piece instead of a forever one. Yeah.
So you go Prezi, which, you know, I mean, like, to start off, let me tell you, you did better than 99% of collectors. I wish my first watch was a Daytona Panda and my second one was a Prezi. Like, it doesn't get any better than those two beautiful watches. So you were in Rolex, you had the Panerai, which I understood. It was just because your original gift was a Panerai. What made the jump? Oh, well, and then Jon.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jon, aka Jon, spirit animal. You know, here we can play daughters. right around this time is where you could put it in the video. So, which is, by the way, super cool. Again, Hodinkee, they did a collaboration with the Porsche design.
Oh, no way.
And because I love Porsche so much, I've been trying to buy it. So if anybody wants to give me, you know, I don't have OnlyFans and all that stuff where people be gifting things, but if you want to gift it on the YouTube channel, you could.
On Only Watches.
Only Watches. We go, oh, that, you see? Money, money, money. So I get the John Mayer, and then you go 5711.
Yeah, bro. This is
Patek, big boy.
Bro, it was a long time coming, and that was, you know, that was to celebrate like the best deal I'd ever done in my entire career. Shout out to my management; they were incredible in my journey, and you know, I very luckily, you know, I won't reveal the name because I don't want them to boot me, but I got into a dealer's chat during pandemic that you're only supposed to be in if you're a dealer. And then it got out that like people who were non-dealers were in it, so they did like a whole exodus of everybody, and I somehow remained. So I was stocking for a year and a half, like the prices when they were shooting high, shooting low, and I just kept waiting until I found one that was like no one wanted to buy. I got super lucky, and you know, I got it repolished and all that stuff. I told you about the scratches and all that stuff. And I don't know, man, that, you know, I wasn't trying to go for the 5711R. I was trying to go for the 5270P salmon dial.
Oh.
But
I mean, you were going for the big box.
yeah, but the thing is, so I wanted that because that was a Grail piece.
Yeah.
But that's not a watch you can just wear. You have to be a certain kind of person to rock that. You kind of have to be in a certain crowd of people. And I felt like I'm going into sessions, I'm going to like industry parties. I'm like, this is a fucking complicated movement that if I fucking at the Grammys and I'm drunk and I hit somebody,
it's over.
I'm gonna cry that night. So I don't know, it just felt more in line. And the more I looked at it, the more I was like, I could wear this more often. And I don't know, the brown dial for me, it just something about it just over the year captivated me more and more and more. And then, you know, when we did that deal and, you know, entered that next kind of stage of my career, I was like, okay, this was that chapter, the first one, what's the one that's gonna be my forever for that? And I don't know, man, it's a simple watch. It's very understated if you don't know what it is, but when you know what it is, it kind of just, it makes you look twice without having to be too flashy.
Yeah, I mean, Gerald Genta best watch designer in the game, obviously.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, legacy.
You know, we're wearing two of his designs for a reason. But I love the I have a 3700 double stamp, right? And it's become honestly my favorite steel watch. It's just the way that it like hugs. This integrated bracelet, the way it hugs, I would probably say is one of the best integrated bracelets. Are what Patek did with this beautiful watch. And honestly, I kind of regret selling mine.
Really? Wow. Can I ask, what made you want to move out of it? Was it that you wanted to get into another piece? You were over it?
Honestly, I don't know, but it was a dumb move. It was a dumb move.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest, I get these like little itches of like, oh man, maybe I want to get into something else. Maybe I want to see what's out there. And I wasn't wearing it as much. I loved it, honestly, but I just wasn't wearing it as much as I wish I was wearing it. And I sold it, and a huge mistake. You know, I like it.
Man.
I'm trying to find, so I don't have any more rose gold watches, like full rose gold, full precious metal. And I've been trying to find a rose gold watch because rose gold looks better on my skin than yellow gold. It's my thing.
You find your color palette?
I found my color palette, and rose is all in it.
Dude.
You know? Not pink, rose gold, guys, okay?
You know what? It's crazy because the rose gold changes so much in Miami. I don't know if you noticed, but the way things patina over the years, I know you can always repolish and get that fresh color, but unless you get like an ever rose gold, you know, 10 years is gonna have a different tone, and I feel like that's part of like what makes shopping for, you know, precious metal watches so hard, because you can find a good quality one that, you know, isn't worn out or everything checks out all clear, but the tone is maybe a little bit different because the guy wore it in the Bahamas his whole life versus, you know, some guy wearing it in France or in New York. It's
that's what got me into vintage watches, because there's this patina, there's this history behind it, there's this like, you know, like I spoke on my last video that I said, you just don't know who wore it. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But there's also amazing building your own memories, right? So moving into, you know, the big boy, then we have the Swatch collection. Talk to me about that.
This honestly is the only piece out of all of this that I feel has like the strongest emotional thing I've ever gone through. Basically, it was a gift from my father, and it came at a time, you know, when my career was kind of shifting and going to a much more intense responsibility stage that I still wasn't sure if I could handle it. And you know, this feels very demanding. It's very tough. It's always, what have you done for me lately? And you know, sometimes you have those seasons where things are amazing, and then you have those low seasons where you're like, oh shit, do I still have it? And then it happens again, and you have to kind of realize that it's these waves. And this came in at the perfect moment, right before one of those, you know, new peaks. And my dad gave it to me as a gift, and I had never gotten a watch gift from my father. And this was something that was so special to me because it reminded me of when he took me to Burger King and I got that Jurassic Park watch. And it's not a story that a lot of people know about, because I'm not too, like, you know, sentimental and revealing my past. But I feel like, you know, we're amongst watch people, and you know, we can talk about, you know, what it means when you wear a watch and walk into a room, what it means when you can buy a watch you've always wanted, but there's something also to, you know, having a watch that kind of brings you back to your first kind of part of your life. And
so, 2 questions. Where do you wear this watch to?
That watch I wear only at home and when I'm like in places that I know I'm not gonna fuck it up. That is, I know those are very, very fragile. I've seen so many people with chip ceramic, like, or it's like plastic or something, but I'm terrified of having that watch damaged. I know I could buy a new one if it was broken, but it's this one. Yeah.
And then second, have you tried searching for that Burger King watch?
No, man. I did look for it. I think it was Jurassic Park 2 at the time or something, but I haven't been able to find the one. It was like this weird, like it had the T-Rex face on it slanted, and it was kind of like a dark gray green, but man, you know, history kind of, your memory kind of fades and you're like, is that the watch?
Well, listen, we have some amazing fans on this channel, so
yeah, if you can find
in the comments, if you can find it, we will buy it so we can gift it to you as a gift to the channel. But definitely in the comments, send the links. So I mean, you'll be surprised. When we get the reference wrong here, they correct you right away. Crush us, man. Oh, man. They crush us, and I gotta remind them, like, hey, I'm not a watch dealer. I don't know the 135s and the 45s and the 80s. We're just fans. You know, we're just fans. But I like it because I understand it. That's how passionate some people are on it. So, so you got this incredible collection, personal, you know, representative of moments that were big in your career. I mean, you literally if you were gonna pick any 3 watches, I think you did good for yourself on those. And then we have
Still in the box, touched. Pokemon.
It says push button, I come alive, but it's dead. It's dead. We got to go back and revive it. But tell me the story of this watch. I love Pokemon growing up. I think almost every kid did. I see here in the back, it actually kind of looks like the video game.
Yeah. It's crazy because my manager Cristobal Brito, shout out to Chris, he's the beast. When we first connected, I had told him the story that when I was a kid, I got bullied at a camp and someone stole my Pokemon cards and it was tragic. And then the same kid the next day stole my Game Boy and it was even more tragic. So he was like, "Don't worry,
we gotta stop that." How you get jacked twice in a week?
Bro, I was a little kid, man. When you're 6 and someone's 9, it's a big height difference. It was one of those little childhood moments where you're like, oh man, that sucked. And I had told my friend this before he managed me. He's like, don't worry, man. One day you're gonna buy those Pokemon cards again. And I'm like, yeah. And he got me a gift one time, and it was these the starter 3 Pokemon cards. And it was before we ever worked together. We were just friends. He was congratulating me on my first single that came out through a label. And I was like, wow, man, that means so much to me. And years later, he started managing me. And I remember when we signed our first kind of batch of production agreements together, and the things started really rolling. And we felt like we had the team finally. My birthday came around, and he got me a couple gifts. And in that gift was this Pokemon watch. And he knew I love watches. He knew my history with Pokemon, as every 90s baby is. And I don't know, man. I could have opened it. I could have taken it out and worn it right away, but it kind of feels a little bit like my own personal sealed Patek.
Yeah.
It's like everyone talks about, oh yeah, they're worth so much and and you don't want to open it and ruin it. But for me, it's like this is a piece of the 90s that I'll never have to taint. It'll always be precious and pristine. And I gotta thank Chris for that. He kind of hit it on the nose. He is the best at gifts, by the way.
Yeah,
if you ask him one day, what are some gifts you've given, you'd be like, I need to get better. I need to start taking notes.
Damn, Chris. What happened my last birthday, Christmas, and what the heck?
Yeah, but man, and it all goes back to watches mean different things for everybody. Some people get it, milestone accomplishments. Some people get it, hand-me-downs and generational things. And for me, it's just about the memory, man. Like every time you look at a watch, what is it gonna remind you of? Is it gonna remind you of growth, beautiful moments, keep you in check, don't get too ego. That's what it is for me, man.
I love that, man. I think that one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on the show was just, we always talk about watches, but for every person, the story about the watch or the emotion behind buying is so different. But it is an emotional attachment. I think it's very different than buying probably anything else in your life. The people collect cars, maybe there's cars, but when it's not a collecting, but it's just kind of a purchase of a shirt because I need it, or a purchase of whatever, anything else, jewelry. There's this thing about watches that I found, at least in my personal journey, that it pushes me to, one, create, right? Because I'm always amazed by the creativity. 2, for me, I've always bought a watch that I can't afford. And this is what I mean. Obviously, I can afford it to buy it, but I know that I'm stretching myself.
Yeah.
I know that I'm making, for what some people might look at as a irresponsible decision.
Yeah.
But they were bought in moments where my career was making significant changes, and pretty much all your pieces, it felt like pushing myself and stretching myself a little bit to remember that moment only just brought more blessing and more opportunity and more things. And so I was actually sharing that with Tony, who's a constant guest on the show. We were eating lunch, and I was like, man, it's crazy. Every single watch that I've ever bought, if you would have looked at it from a point of view of my financial advisor, you'd be like, do not buy the watch. You should not buy the watch. And I bought it a little scared, right? Am I really making this decision? But I've never looked back at any of them, and I've enjoyed them, and to me, that's the best part of this. So one of the things that I try to teach the audience is, whether you can afford Pateks and APs and Rolexes, or you have Seikos and Casios and Timepieces, love your watch, have it be, let it get a little scratch, beat it up, show some sign, or keep it, whatever is good for you. But it's a beautiful hobby to be a part of. So thank you for coming and sharing your collection.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing stories. I can't wait to see where it goes. Before I let you go, though, what's next? What's that Grail watch that you're looking for? What is that one moment?
For me, it's the perpetual AP. You know, when you talked about it, I was like, that's the one that keeps coming back. It's the one that you have dreams about. You're like, and when you see it out in the street, it's like seeing a ghost. You're like, that exists in person. Like, you don't just see it on YouTube. You can actually see somebody with one. So for me, that's the one that the one that got away. But one day I'm gonna get and attain it, and I want to wait for the right milestone so that I can feel like I checked all the check marks I wanted to do in my career.
Love that, man. Sending you the best energy in getting that one. If there's any APADs, you already know. He wants that. Put that on the list. Write it up. Have him have a coffee and a water. Thank you for being part of the channel, guys. Subscribe, follow. Where can they follow you?
Yeah, on Instagram, Jon the Producer.
Jon the Producer. Incredible music. On to the next one. 0 to 60.
Thanks for having me, bro.
My guy, that's awesome.